The day it happened still lives in town gossip like a rumor that won't die. It wasn't just the moment a dirty mechanic walked into the pristine, marble-floored showroom of Millerton's most exclusive car dealership. It was what followed over the next 48 hours that had everyone questioning everything they thought they knew about class, money, and power. What started as a cruel joke turned into a series of events so bizarre and unsettling that even now, people lean in closer when it's retold, still trying to make sense of how it all flipped upside down. It began on a Thursday morning, right as the sun peeled through the smog and cast golden streaks across the windshields lined up like trophies in front of Lawrence Motors. The staff, always on edge when high-end clients rolled in, were gathered near the entrance, laughing. Not at a joke, at a man. He was short, broad-shouldered, with oil stains crawling up his forearms, sweat pressing into the back of his faded navy overalls. His boots left dark marks on the polished floor, his calloused hands dusted off on a rag that hung limply from his back pocket. One of the salesmen, a wiry guy named Brent with too much gel in his hair and a grin too smug for someone who only sold cars for commission, crossed his arms and blocked the man's path. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked, the "sir" soaked in sarcasm. The mechanic only nodded, eyes scanning the rows of gleaming vehicles. He pointed to a charcoal gray Maserati. "How much?" he asked flatly. Brent laughed. "You mean how much is the car, or how much will it cost to tow your busted truck off the lot?" His colleagues cracked up. Someone muttered something about janitors getting bold. Another offered him a free keychain, just for laughs. The mechanic didn't react. He just looked at the Maserati again, nodded to himself, and walked out. The laughter followed him like an echo, bouncing between the glass doors as they shut behind him. That should have been the end of it. Just another poor man reminded of his place. But what none of them realized was that they had just lit a fuse. Because later that afternoon, a sleek black Escalade with tinted windows rolled up to the lot. This time, nobody laughed. The man who stepped out wore a tailored gray suit that hung perfectly from his broad frame. His beard was trimmed, his shoes custom, and his face? Familiar. Shockingly so. It was the same man from that morning, except now he looked like he belonged in one of the luxury ads posted all over the dealership's Instagram. Brent blinked. "Can I help you?" The mechanic, now businessman, smiled thinly. "I'm here to meet with your manager. This won't take long." The manager, Mr. Linwood, a man who prided himself on recognizing money the moment it walked in, was already waiting in the glass office overlooking the floor. He stood when the visitor entered, offered him a firm handshake. "We've been expecting you, Mr. Grant." Brent and the other salesmen stared from a distance, confusion etched across their faces. Mr. Grant? What was happening? What followed was even more surreal. The mechanic, whose name, it turned out, was Marcus Grant, had not come to buy a car. He had come to buy the dealership, every inch of it. And what made it worse for the staff was how calm he was about it. Like it was routine, like he'd done it before. Mr. Linwood cleared his throat once the paperwork had been finalized. "The previous owner accepted your offer this morning. Everything will transfer over by next Monday." He glanced at Brent and the others, who were now pretending to busy themselves with paperwork. Marcus only nodded. "I'll be making a few changes." What no one understood, at least not yet, was where this man had come from. Sure, he looked different now, spoke differently, walked like a man with gravity in his steps. But how did a guy who changed tires and replaced mufflers walk into a place like this and walk out owning it? The whispers began before the Escalade even pulled away. Some said Marcus had won the lottery. Others claimed he was fronting for a criminal organization. A few speculated he wasn't even a mechanic at all, but had been casing the place. Brent insisted it was all a prank, and he was being punked. But then Marcus returned the next day, early, and walked into the dealership wearing a black polo embroidered with the Lawrence Motors logo and the title Owner stitched under his name. He asked for a meeting with the staff. They gathered in the break room, silent, waiting. The air smelled of burnt coffee and nerves. Marcus stood at the front, arms crossed. "Let me make something clear," he said. "I didn't buy this place to humiliate anyone. I bought it because people like me get laughed at too often. Because I worked 2 decades with dirt under my nails while some of you laughed at men like me." Nobody said a word. "I don't care what school you went to, how pretty your resume is, or how good you look in a suit. From now on, everyone gets respect, customer or not. If that's a problem, your last paycheck's waiting." Brent opened his mouth, but no sound came out. By noon, the dealership's Instagram account had been wiped clean. By 3 p.m., a local news van was parked outside. And by evening, Marcus's face was trending on Twitter, paired with screenshots of his old mechanic shop, videos of the laughter from the first day, and a hashtag that simply read, "Number Owner Marcus." But here's where the story starts to twist. Because while the town cheered and reposted clips of Marcus walking through his new dealership like a boss reclaiming a stolen throne, something else was bubbling beneath the surface. The former owner of the dealership, a man named Harold Dunst, had sold it fast, too fast. He hadn't listed it, hadn't negotiated, just signed the papers. And that raised eyebrows, especially when it was revealed that Harold had been under federal investigation for months. Money laundering, wire fraud, and the timing? Impeccable, almost too perfect. Some began to wonder, was Marcus just lucky, or was he tied to something deeper? A local blogger named Miranda started digging. She found records, barely legal transfers of money from shell corporations, hidden accounts, overseas payments, and Marcus's name nowhere. But the mechanic shop? It had received a sudden investment a year ago, enough to triple its size and relocate to a larger building. Miranda tried to confront him outside the dealership, cameras rolling, mic extended. "Mr. Grant, can you explain the money trail that led to your purchase?" Marcus didn't flinch. He smiled, stepped into his Escalade, and rolled down the window. "You're asking the wrong questions." Then he drove off. The next morning, Miranda's blog was hacked. Her site went dark for 12 hours. When it came back online, all posts about Marcus were gone. Every file, every backup. And that's when people started getting scared. Because if a mechanic could rise to power overnight and buy the place where he'd once been humiliated, and if he could make those who mocked him vanish from the narrative, what else was he capable of? But the real bombshell came 1 week later. It arrived in the form of a confidential tip, delivered in a manila envelope to Miranda's apartment door. No return address, no fingerprints. Inside was a single photo. It showed Marcus Grant, but not as a mechanic, not even as a businessman. He was dressed in military gear, flanked by 2 other men, all of them standing in front of a burned-out vehicle in a desert landscape. The patch on his shoulder? Not American. And scrawled across the back of the photo in messy red ink were 5 chilling words. "This isn't who you think." The photo changed everything. It sat on Miranda's kitchen table like a loaded gun, daring her to pick it up again. She'd already scanned it a dozen times, used every online tool to verify the paper, the ink, even the metadata on the digital scan. It was real. And if it was real, then Marcus Grant was not just a successful entrepreneur with a chip on his shoulder, he was someone much more dangerous. The patch on his uniform was traced back to a paramilitary unit that didn't officially exist. A Black Ops division rumored to be funded through off-the-books budgets, foreign contracts, and intelligence alliances that made even experienced journalists tread lightly. That photo didn't just suggest Marcus had a past, it whispered that he had the kind of past people were paid to forget. And now he owned the most prominent dealership in town. Miranda didn't sleep that night. Her walls felt thinner, her laptop hummed louder, and every time she heard a car pass, she glanced out the window to make sure it wasn't that black Escalade. It wasn't paranoia. It was instinct. She'd been in journalism long enough to know when someone didn't want a story told, and when they had the means to make sure it never was. But the envelope had come to her for a reason. Someone wanted the truth out. By morning, she'd packed a duffel bag and hit the road. Not running, investigating. She drove 3 hours north to the only known location ever tied to the Phantom unit, a private airfield on the edge of Carlisle County. The records were sealed, the land supposedly abandoned. But Miranda knew how to dig. She didn't find soldiers, she found silence. But in the silence, she found something more valuable. A rusted trailer near the edge of the fence, locked from the outside. Inside were discarded files, blackened photographs, and a disassembled radio transmitter. Buried in the corner beneath a cracked storage crate was a photo album. And there he was again, Marcus. Younger, smiling with a woman beside him, holding a baby. That alone wouldn't have meant much until she flipped to the last page. The woman's face was circled in pen. Next to it, a note. "She's still alive. Watch her." And below that, an address. Miranda blinked. It was local, Millerton. She didn't hesitate. She jumped back in her car and sped toward the listed location, heart pounding harder with each passing mile. The address led her to a modest 2-story home on the outskirts of town, shrouded in trees and silence. The mailbox was rusted, the grass untouched. Miranda parked down the road and walked the rest of the way. Her fingers trembled as she knocked on the door. It opened just a crack. A chain held it in place. An elderly woman peeked through. Her eyes widened slightly. "You're not supposed to be here." "I just have some questions," Miranda said quickly, "about Marcus Grant." The woman stiffened. She glanced behind her, then unlatched the chain and stepped aside. "You have 5 minutes," she whispered. Inside, the house was clean but sparse. Faded photographs on the mantel, an untouched cup of tea on the table. The woman motioned for Miranda to sit. "You found the trailer," she said, her voice low. "That means you know more than you should, but you still don't know enough." "Who is he?" Miranda asked. "Really?" The woman exhaled slowly. "He used to be one of us, operated under a different name, Captain Marlon Griggs. He was intelligence, infiltration, demolition, brilliant, ruthless, until the mission in Guru. That's when everything changed." Miranda leaned forward. "What happened?" "They killed his wife, bombed the safe house, took out his team. He went dark after that, burned his identity, walked away from everything." She paused. "Until now." "Why the dealership?" Miranda asked. The woman chuckled dryly. "It's not about the dealership. It's about the men who ran it. Harold Dunst wasn't just laundering money, he was tied to the arms trade, selling to the same people who funded the attack in Guru. Marcus didn't just buy the dealership, he bought the last link in the chain." Miranda's breath caught. "So this is revenge." The woman's silence confirmed it. "He's not just here to run a business," the woman said finally. "He's here to dismantle what's left of a network no one else was willing to expose. Quietly, precisely, from the inside." Miranda sat back, stunned. "And if you publish anything before it's done," the woman added, "you'll get people killed." Miranda left the house shaken. This wasn't the story she thought she was chasing. It wasn't about a viral redemption arc or a man getting back at arrogant salesmen. It was bigger, bloodier, dangerous. But the journalist in her still burned. And as she sat in her car, staring at the house in the rearview mirror, she whispered to herself, "There has to be a way." She didn't go back to her apartment. She didn't call her editor. Instead, she returned to Marcus's old mechanic shop. It had been shuttered since the day he bought the dealership. Dust coated the windows, but the lock was new. Someone had been there recently. Miranda found a side door and slipped in. The place was spotless, no tools, no grease, just concrete floors and silence. But in the office, hidden behind a false panel in the wall, she found a small server rack, active, quiet, blinking. She was about to pull out her phone when the lights flipped on. "Didn't expect you to find this place." She turned sharply. Marcus stood in the doorway. No suit, no overalls, just a plain black shirt and slacks, his expression unreadable. "I didn't mean to trespass," Miranda said, swallowing. I wanted the truth." "You already have it," he said calmly. "Not all of it," she said. "Who else is involved? What's coming next?" He stepped into the room slowly, hands at his sides. "It was never about making a scene," he said. "I just wanted to finish what I started. But now you've stirred the pot. You're trying to destroy what's left of the old network," she said. "But someone doesn't want you to. Someone sent me that photo." Marcus's jaw clenched slightly. "I know." "You know who?" "Yes. And they've already made their move." A sharp bang echoed through the back of the shop. Miranda ducked instinctively. Marcus grabbed her wrist and pulled her behind the desk. "They found you," he said. "And now they found me." Through the window, dark figures moved. Tactical gear, silencers. "Who are they?" she whispered. "The cleanup crew," he said, loading a pistol from a locked drawer. "They're not here to negotiate." Gunfire shattered the front windows. Marcus returned fire, his movements precise, fast, terrifying. Miranda stayed low, heart pounding in her throat. The man before her was no longer just a businessman, no longer even a mechanic. He was something else entirely. A weapon. One of the men broke through the office door. Marcus shot him in the leg, then disarmed him in seconds, dragging him into the room. "Who sent you?" he growled. The man spat blood. "Dunst! Had insurance." Marcus's face darkened. "Of course he did." The man passed out. Sirens wailed in the distance. Marcus stood, chest heaving. "They'll pin this on me. They'll make it look like I was hiding something, which I was, but not what they'll say." Miranda stood too. "Then let me help." He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time his eyes softened. "You still want to write the story?" "I want to write the truth," she said. "All of it." He nodded slowly. "Then you'll need protection." A week later, the dealership reopened, but it looked different. The staff had changed. Brent was gone. So was the old sales crew. In their place were veterans, former operatives, quiet professionals in suits, nodding respectfully to every customer who walked in. The showroom felt less like a luxury trap and more like a fortress. Miranda's article never ran. Not yet. Instead, she sent it encrypted to a trusted source overseas, someone who knew how to disappear stories until the right moment. Because Marcus wasn't done. The men he'd taken out were only the beginning. There were still names on the list, still connections buried deep inside local government, banks, and real estate firms. The old network had gone underground, but it hadn't died. And Marcus, he had no intention of stopping until it did. On the anniversary of the day he was first laughed out of the dealership, Marcus stood in the showroom window, watching the sun set across the polished hoods of imported cars. Miranda stood beside him. "Still think you should have let me publish?" she asked. He smirked. Soon, and as the lights dimmed behind them and the city rolled into another quiet night, a dark sedan pulled up to the curb. A familiar man stepped out. The man from the photo, not Marcus, the third soldier, alive, and very much unannounced. Marcus's expression changed, his jaw tightened. "You weren't supposed to find me," he whispered. And just like that, the past Marcus had buried didn't knock this time. It walked right through the front door. The story ends here. But Marcus's war, it's only just begun.